See her? Can you see her moving? Hope this caught her. Couple moved up here. Hi, I'm Sissy. I'm just looking at you with a camera. I hope y'all can see them. Anyway, this couple have been up here a year and a half. They recently sent a question in to the village. That was, maybe you can see them. He's in the dog run. He's in the dog run. He can't hurt you. Boy, I'm gonna back up just a little. Anyway, this couple, they said that they had retired and they were looking for a place to live. And they came up to these mountains. Of all the places they could choose to live up here, they decided to buy property within the village limits, which is rural. It's quite rural because they saw the fire station and were told that there was a fire department and EMS. So they thought that was better should they ever happen to need it. Well, in the year and a half they've been up here, they've had to call 911 twice. One time because the husband fell. The other time because the husband became ill. And the local village EMS did not respond to the call. Instead, the nearest town, which is off these mountains, down in the desert, the drive is roughly 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. And the ambulance came from there. And so it was 40 minutes, they said, before the ambulance arrived, both times. And to quote what was quoted of them, they said, quote, "This is unacceptable," end quote. And they wanted to know what the candidates for the village council were going to do about this. And they wanted them to make 911 service, emergency service, their top priority. It's how it is when you come out to rural areas. Because you see a fire department, a fire station, or someone like the real estate agent tells you, yes, there's EMS service, that does not mean that it's going to be like it is in the city. I've known people, my own husband died up here. My neighbor's husband, my neighbors who used to live in this cabin here, they were widowed sisters. Their husbands had passed on. My next door neighbor's husband grew ill up here, and he died just a couple of days later in the hospital down in the desert. He was only in his 50s. He was younger than I am. And there's a number of other people who I've known. One of my cousins, she had a stroke while she was up here visiting mutual cousins, staying with them at their home. Another cousin of mine fell and hit his head and eventually was transported over 100 miles away, a better hospital than what's in this rural area, and he died down there. It's how it is when you come out to rural areas. In the city, when you would call 911, for instance, my own husband had a seizure disorder after his brain injury. The brain injury caused a lot of problems, one of which was status epilepticus seizures, which is a medical emergency. And you call 911, and the fire department is there within 1 minute, literally 1 minute, saving his life, getting him to the hospital, which is in the city. So if you are older, I'm older, but even if you're young, you can get injured if at any age, but especially something for older people to consider because our health can fail at some point. But at any age, really, you have to realize that when you're coming out rural, you are taking your life in your hands. You will not be able to call 911 and have an ambulance there within 1 minute like you have back in the city, or within even 5 minutes like you have in the city. I'm in New Mexico, Cloudcroft. The fire department is volunteer. The EMS is volunteer. It's people in the goodness of their heart coming out to volunteer to help their own and whoever's visiting up here. And they get trained. They're just as well trained as a paid fire department. Most rural fire departments and most rural EMS throughout the United States is volunteer. That means the call goes out, then the call goes to the volunteer. The volunteer may be at work if they're younger and they're still working, or the volunteer may be at home, or the volunteer may be off, and the response time can be pretty long. Specifically for the Cloudcroft, New Mexico area, the Sacramento Mountains, you've got a choice. You have Cloudcroft or you have Ruidoso. Ruidoso is an actual town, mountain town, 2,000 feet lower. It's at roughly 7,000 feet. And it has a fire department, EMS, they're paid. They have a hospital right there in the village. Somebody's on staff. They're able to hop in that ambulance and go. So the time of your treatment, getting help, it will be faster. Of course, Ruidoso down, Salto, all one and the same in my opinion. That's 13,000 people. Cloudcroft, gotta face reality. The people that live here year-round in Cloudcroft is 700 people. There's not the money to have paid EMS up here. Now, one of the village council candidates, who's also a village council member at the moment, said that they have they did manage to get money or whatever to fund an EMT position, a paid EMT position, but they haven't been able to fill it. And he also said that there's a lot less volunteers these days. I know that New Mexico earlier this year did something. It made a lot of people stop volunteering in rural communities because they can't lose their house and home. It was a situation of, if you make a mistake or something, you can be sued. Now, after the outrage about that from many volunteers throughout rural parts of New Mexico, the governor of New Mexico came back and said, you can't be sued. The only ones who would be sued is the actual fire department. Well, nobody really believes that. Many of the volunteers would check with their own attorneys. No one can afford to fight a lawsuit. If you're not covered by insurance to fight a lawsuit, nobody can afford that. That's another reason why there's a hard time with volunteers. So just keep in mind, if you are thinking of a place to live, leaving the city, coming out rural, whatever your age is, you need to become your first responders, your own first responders. Get yourself trained in first aid and CPR. Be trained. The American Red Cross does training for that. We've got a noisy blue jay up there. I doubt you can see him. Squawking away. And I don't know if you can see those elk over there eating off in the distance. But at any rate, you would have to be trained in your own CPR and first aid. And you have to realize that if you're severely hurt, you may have to have a helicopter ride off the mountain to the nearest bigger city hospital. All of that delays treatment. Of course, time delayed when it comes to an injury or severe illness can mean death, or an outcome that would not be nearly as good if you were in the city with EMS service right there, ready to respond, be at your door within 1 to 5 minutes. There's that bird up there. After my husband passed on, and I would bring my elderly mother up here who had a lot of medical problems. Well, I'm trained in first aid and CPR. In fact, I even got the instructor training. I got all that training for because when they said, well, the response time could be 30 minutes, maybe 40. I thought, okay, gotta be self-reliant. Better go get trained. And did. And I had made up my mind what I would do unless something had happened with my mother that I could not drag her into the truck for some reason. I would definitely just get her in the truck and we would go down the mountain. But she loved it up here. She wanted to be up here. She was willing to take the risk. Okay, fine. This is the reality, so I thought I'd just remind you all. whenever you're looking rural, think about safety. Think about how your health could turn later on. Of course, accidents can happen at any time. Bye-bye.